Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most, JJ. It's JJ Meets World, the podcast. I really think you guys are going to enjoy today's episode with Deb Jenkins. We get to talk about all the great stuff she makes, including her mock duck, which is one of the most delicious things I've ever tasted. Plus, we talk about a celebration of women and their music. We talk about her growing up and spending some time in Guam. All of this and so much more on today's episode of JJ Meets World. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of JJ Meets World is brought to you by Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. Natalie has a proven track record to get your home sold faster and for more money. She is consistently focused on her clients' needs and wants throughout the entire process and make sure that they are well taken care of. If you're looking to buy or sell, reach out to Natalie today. On average, Natalie sells a home every 3.74 days. That's at least 2 a week. And last year, Natalie earned her clients on average over $4,000 above list price on their homes. And you don't have to take our word for it. Here's some of the great reviews Natalie has received. I was overwhelmingly impressed with Natalie and all the Hatch team. She was very responsive and responded to all of the emails within an hour. She gave great advice and encouragement from the listing and pictures, the offer, and all the closing details. The marketing team knew exactly how to promote my property, and I was pleased by how soon and easily my property received an offer. I was actually dreading selling my condo, and Natalie did such an awesome job that I felt like I really didn't need to do anything. The thing I most appreciated was that she really listened to what I wanted to do and respected my decisions. I would definitely recommend Natalie and all the Hatch Realty team. They made this process so wonderful. That was from Diane. So listen, if you're in the mood to buy or sell a home, give Natalie a call right now. You can reach her at 701-388-9338. Natalie, Natalie, at hatchrealtyfm.com, or you can go to livefargomorehead.com. That's livefargomorehead.com and find out some information. Huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring JJ Meets World.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Some people have a gene in their body that makes cilantro taste like soap. My wife has that. She goes, it tastes like soap. It's like you put a bar of soap in my mouth when you put cilantro in something. Whereas I love the delicious taste of cilantro. I think it kicks up many dishes. And I feel bad for my wife because she'll never know what it's like to really enjoy that. But it makes me think, if that is true, if that you can be genetically predisposed to having a different style of taste bud when it comes to a specific taste, am I tasting things differently than other people are? Does an orange taste different to me than it does to Tucker?
Right. Is mustard actually delicious?
Right. And I'm just genetically predisposed to not liking it. There's nothing about mustard that I should not like. Mm-hmm. It goes on things I love to eat all the time. It is, it's got a spice to it. If you want the spice, it's got a very distinct taste. So I wonder if maybe there is something like that out there.
Could be.
That changes people's tastes.
Or can you whistle? Do you have webbed toes?
I can whistle.
Because, those are also things that your genes can decide for you, I think.
No, wait, whistling? Really?
I can't whistle.
What?
I haven't been able to. And I've heard it said before, just
try.
So that's through my teeth.
You can't go.
Nope. I've never been able to. And I've always been told that some people just can't for whatever reason. And I don't know if that's true, but I always take it as true because I've always actually been somewhat self-conscious about the fact that I can't whistle.
That is amazing to me. I can't roll my tongue. You know how people can do that thing where they make it like a 3 roll? I always thought I had a fat tongue.
Right. I can't do that either.
Interesting. Yeah. Genes are an interesting thing. And I'm not talking about Wranglers. Mm-hmm. It's something where I wonder what the future is going to hold for people, that if they say, like, I don't like tomatoes, if they can change their genes, instead of like an oxygen bar at the mall, you'll go to like like we see, you see genes, and you just get a shot.
Or maybe it is something like how as you age, your taste buds change too. Something that you found disgusting as a child, you might end up liking in your 40s, or vice versa.
Oh, interesting.
You know, that kind of change too. So I wonder how much of it is, you know, genetics, and how much of it is your relationship with that food.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
like if your father choked to death on a mushroom, you don't want to eat them,
right?
And you don't care if they're delicious. They killed your papa.
The mushroom killed my dad.
Our guest today is Deb Jenkins, and we have a wonderful discussion about food, about music, about Guam.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things get included in this episode, and we talk about the fact that you can't say Deb Jenkins without saying Deb Jenkins. She's one of those individuals who everyone calls her by her full name. If people are talking about Tucker in town, they don't say Tucker Lucas.
Right.
They just say Tucker.
Right.
If they say JJ, they know it's JJ Gordon. Sometimes it might be Jonathan Judd, the mayor of Moorhead.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, no, JJ Gordon is the JJ.
Mayor JJ, or the one who makes the funny noises?
That like cuts me even deeper. That I don't get to be the mayor JJ. Oh, Jonathan Judd. Today's episode, I think you guys are really going to get something out of this. And we have an amazing discussion about the celebration of women in their music,
yep,
which Deb was the founder of. And you get to hear a little bit of history and then a little bit about what she hopes for the future of this event as well. So sit back, relax, grab a delicious bag of Deb Jenkins chips. They're available at Happy Harry's, and really sink into this episode of JJ Meets World with Deb Jenkins.
JJ Meets World.
Deb Jenkins, welcome to the JJ Meets World studios. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. This is fun.
This is exciting because I feel like anytime anyone ever says Deb Jenkins, it's followed with Deb Jenkins, and they're so excited. And you have this effect on people where they can't wait to be around you.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. I have just had that experience last night when I was out. I was at Harold's in Moorhead, which we were just talking about, and visiting with my friend, and I heard someone said Deb Jenkins, and I looked at her and went, okay, I know I just heard Deb Jenkins. And she said, well, I didn't hear anything. I said, okay, it's probably something else. And then about 20 minutes later, a guy comes up and shyly says, are you Deb Jenkins? I have to hesitate because there's three of us, three Deb Jenkins.
Oh, really?
Deb Jenkins, myself, here in Fargo. Another Deb Jenkins that I can't really say more than she made the news a lot back in a couple of years ago, and it was never good. Mm-hmm. And a Deb Jenkins that's a writer that lives in western North Dakota.
Oh, wow.
And we have all been confused. And I have gotten the brunt of the bad one because both of us live in this area, and had to sort of defend myself like that's not me.
Isn't that always just the pits when someone says, oh, I read about you in the paper yesterday? You did? I didn't know that I was in the paper yesterday.
Right, yeah. So I found out in that first really bad experience, and this was way back, when in the first episode that was like a real big issue because the person had done something really bad. I wanted to write a letter to the editor, and the editor at the paper just said, well, you know, the best thing I can tell you to do is don't write us, but put your initial whenever you write your name in there. So now if I do things, I like to have my J in there because what can you do? My husband, there's another Mike Jenkins, and there's another, many, probably yourself somewhere, people just...
Well, JJ was not taken by anybody until Jonathan Judd became the mayor of Moorhead, and now everyone calls him JJ. So I told him on this very podcast that one day we're going to have like a West Side Story style dance off to decide who's going to keep it and then who can go by. And I'm also Jonathan, and he's Jonathan, so it gets even more confusing as it goes down.
Pete's sakes. Doesn't it go by first? Come first?
That's what I said. And I imagine you established Deb Jenkins as a personality first, so you should have the ownership of it.
Well, I can't speak for the writer, but I would say just for right here in the area, I guess, although I didn't pay attention to the news, maybe she was in the news before me. I don't know.
I think another interesting fact about you that I've gleaned over being in different parties and different social events with you is nobody calls you Deb. They call you Deb Jenkins. They give you your full name when they say it. And only certain people command that level of respect.
Oh, for Pete's sakes, this is like, oh no.
Oh yeah, we'll save the bad stuff for the end, but we'll get the compliments. But do you? I mean, like you said, even so, you didn't hear someone yell Deb from across Harold. You heard someone yell Deb Jenkins.
Yes, correct.
So that's got to be kind of neat, huh?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm just learning how to, and I'm not even making this up, to deal with it. I used to put my hands behind my back when someone would come up because I was so nervous. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I would fiddle with my hands because, I mean, I just really feel that I'm just one person of many in the world, for sure in Fargo, that just is out there doing stuff. But we all have that potential. And I just don't see myself like everybody is saying. It's good, but I'm approachable and
humble too. Who doesn't love that? So, for starters, can you tell me a little bit about your background, your history?
Sure. So I am an Air Force brat, proud to say, because if it wasn't, I don't think I'd be sitting here right now because I would have had a whole different path. So I grew up moving about every 2 to 4 years. I've lived everywhere I've lived in Michigan, California, almost moved to Minot, North Dakota, but my dad got shipped to Greenland. And at the time, families, and I still don't know if they do, couldn't go with him to Greenland. So we went to Florida, where my mom's from, and New York City, born in New Jersey, never lived there. But my favorite place on the planet is Guam. I lived on Guam. And believe this or not, neither one of you were even conceived at that time, because I'm sure you weren't. But I went off base to high school. I was there for 2 years, 66 to 68. And Vietnam War, everything was just horrible. We lived on a base called the Air Force Base had the Guam bombers, like that if they take off, they go bomb, whatever. And one of my first memories of high school, which was the coolest high school, no shoes, whatever, just come to school kind of deal. One of the teachers told us we should be proud that we're on this Air Force base, because if there is ever a war, the first place that's going to get bombed or the bombers are going to leave or whatever. So what happened, what was it, 4 years ago? And they were like talking about Guam being bombed. They're like, holy smoke, she was so,
Wow.
right on. But Guam is so different now, but it was just a grown-up place for a little kid, because you went to school with Guamanians, Filipinos, Australians, statesидers, that's me, because I was a statesider, and it was totally different. Kids would come to school with machetes. We had more bomb scares than I even knew. Then I come back to the States, and the biggest issue in high school, because my senior year I was in Richfield, because that's where my parents finally bought a home. And the biggest issue there was dress code. It just blew me away. How long your skirt was or whatever. It's like, I just came from like kids coming to school with machetes and bomb scares, and you're worried about dress code. Come on. But it was a really great experience. Guam really opened me up to a lot of culture.
Well, it sounds like the type of thing too, where especially in a school environment, you're all there for the same purpose, right?
Yeah.
So, when you think of like New York City as like a melting pot of cultures, and it truly is, but not everyone's there for the same purpose.
Yep.
And so you don't always end up in, Little Italy, and you're not, meeting people from all these cultures. But when you're sitting in the desk and you're all trying to figure out, how math works,
Right.
It's a whole different experience.
So when I was on Guam, they found someone in a cave that thought the war was still on from Japan. And when I was on Guam, my family's furniture was on the Bear, this ship, and it sank, and it made national news. And then I found out after living here in Fargo, everything's a dot, so just be careful. You never know. I befriended and have a really good friend that lives here who happened to be on that ship in the Navy. Yeah, and he lives here, and we just happened to figure out that we were both on Guam at the same time.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it's only, 3 by 4 miles. It's a really tiny, it's a dot. When I tried to find it, like, where is it? It was like a pencil head on the map,
A lot of machetes in that pencil head, though.
Yes, a lot of machetes. And then I got my driver's license on Guam because he gave mercy upon me. They only had a flashing light, yellow.
No stoplight. It's only like just be
so
cautious.
I didn't know what merging traffic was. I didn't know all that crap. So yeah, So
I always love talking to the rural kids who say that, we didn't really understand what a stop sign was because we had the slow down road.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
yeah.
Or the people who do the like 2-finger hello, like when you're driving in rural North Dakota and they don't take their hand off the wheel,
yeah.
they just put up like 2 fingers. And it doesn't matter if they know you or not.
Right.
They're, giving the hello to everybody while they're rolling down the road.
It's like being on the lake.
Yeah, exactly,
Wave,
right? Like
yeah.
we're all friends on the
Right.
lake.
Right.
So how do you end up in Fargo, North Dakota?
Well, I went to school in college in Mankato. Yay. And while I was in college, my goal was I wanted to always be a nurse. And I also like speech and theater arts. So I went to school hoping that I would get accepted into the technical school for nursing, which was an LPN program. And my senior year, I got accepted into the LPN program. So I quit school and did the nursing, moved to Minneapolis. And then I don't remember who she was, but apparently a nurse I work with was trying out for a band. And I tagged along with her. And I guess that's where I met my husband, who's from Moorhead.
Oh,
And
there
so,
you go.
yeah, he wanted to actually move to Tucson, Arizona. So again, not born yet, in 1973, I was like, I don't want to move to Tucson. I can't visualize young people living there. I'm sorry, I'm older now, and I see that. There's a lot of young people, colleges, but we came up here to visit his mom, and I just loved it. I mean, I figured we're far enough away from the big city of Minneapolis, but close enough. And then same with Winnipeg, when I've never had been to Winnipeg, but it just big cities sort of surround us. So I won. I said, let's move here. He didn't really want to move back here, but I know that he's grateful that we did. It was a perfect place to raise a family, and it still is. It's amazing to see the changes since 1973 to now. Holy buckets. It's amazing. So I came from a city. I lived in Richfield, but basically Minneapolis, where the crime was like, saying pass the butter. It just happened every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I moved here in the year, I can't remember the year now. It was 70. It was in the 70s. A young lady was murdered. And it was just out of a novel for me. It was just like, at that time, binge watching the news like you do Netflix. Like, wow. They've made posters, and they put the posters on like they do in the real movie, like on a pole, Polly Johnson, do you know her? Wanted, the bank. There was the whole thing. And I went home. I was telling my mom, I went, you're not going to believe this. Like, I don't know the last murder there was in North Dakota or Fargo, but this one person, it's all over the news every night and blah, blah, blah. And as I'm telling her the story and I'm taking her to work, she worked at Fort Snelling, and on the news, like, somebody jumped off a building, somebody was falling in the river. So, like, I don't get it. I love Fargo.
It is interesting. So I grew up in Fargo, and I moved to Chicago at one point, and I'm back, and I'm glad that I'm back. But in the last decade, Fargo has changed drastically, and part of change is learning that like there's an outside world. I think that Fargo was a bubble for a long time, and so you came in when it was part of that bubble where it was big news. I mean, the kidnapping of Gina North shook this community for years.
That was my first exposure to something like that, because I remember her. I went to Horseman, and she was a couple grades above me, and I remember seeing her in the hallway. Wow. And then I have a vivid memory of going to the YMCA for swim lessons, and in the hallway outside the locker rooms was her poster. I couldn't even read yet, but I was like, Mom, I know that. I know, I've seen that girl. She goes to school with me. I remember the grief counselors coming in. I remember them planting the tree in her memory, and the reverberations throughout the years at my school because of that. Wow. It's one of those, shatters the peace and the innocence of the area.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think it goes to show that, Fargo is still that tight-knit community that it wants to be. And, people get out and help push other cars out of snow drifts when it's there. But we are now in a very quick way learning what the rest of the world has been doing for a very long time.
Yeah.
Even as horrible as officer-involved shootings are now a thing that we're not necessarily getting used to, but we're having to deal with. And so I'm really glad that Fargo is growing. I'm so happy about that. But at the same time, I'm also a little worried that we're not taking the right steps all the time to become a more diverse, a more welcoming community, a more understanding community. I will say this, our chief of police in Fargo has done wonders when it comes to examining mental health and how mental health plays into crime and just the usual suspects, so to speak.
Right.
The crisis intervention training that they have been going through is just amazing stuff.
Yep.
And also the fact that we're getting good movies and we're getting good music, and
Right.
gone are the days of where you only got booked in Fargo because you were on your way to Montana or you're on your way to Minneapolis and you
Right.
just needed an extra day there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And you got to see that, like, downtown was still a happening place when you came, but
Yes.
it was not what it was in the 50s and 60s. And of course, by the time you rolled around, West Acres was just being built, right?
Really, it was, and actually lived in Colfax for a while.
Oh,
and so
yeah.
I worked it was St. Luke's at Sanford North Side, but just going home to get onto 29, there was nothing between downtown and out there. There's nothing. So I've never lived long enough anywhere to see that transition of a city or a little town or what's going on. And this is just like, I cater and I drive all over. And I'll get an address like, I have no idea where this is.
Yeah, Polk Street? What's that?
Is there a Polk Street?
There is, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I remember when 32nd Avenue was the end of Fargo. I mean, that was it. And people who live south of that was rural living.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to West Fargo? Oh my gosh, that's really far.
Yeah.
Really, it was really far. It's like,
I'm now living in West Fargo for the first time in my adult life, and it's the one problem I have is that everywhere I need to go isn't in West Fargo. So it's just a longer commute everywhere. And I'm a member of Theater B in Moorhead, so I'm regularly doing from West Fargo to Moorhead and back a couple times in a week.
Yeah.
But I guess if you live in a big city like New York, you go, Crimea River.
I know.
You know, 15-minute commute. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, I hang out with people that live in Egan, and I'm down in the city, and they're like, oh, that's no big deal. I'll drive in from Egan to go out, I'm like, okay, so.
So let's talk about music real quick, because that's a big part of your life.
Yes.
So you went a little tag along to a music audition, and the rest is history?
Well, the rest only with Mike and I, because the band never played, and I don't remember the girl. She never got hired. So, yeah, I met Mike, and he, like I say, he's from Moorhead, and I can't remember the bands that he was in, but he grew up here in bands and playing the Fargo Moorhead, the area, I guess. And so when we moved here, we didn't have a band, but he was involved with people playing. And I've never, before I met Mike, other than singing just for fun with bands that I'd like to do, get up and whatever. I've never been in a band, but I don't know, Mike decided that I could sing, and so let's start a band. And we started a band called Second Wind in 1980. And our first gig was at the time, Moorhead State, and it was in the basement of the Nickel, in the Union. I think they called it the Nickel Cafe. That might not be right, but it was down the basement. And so this is not, for one thing, I'm not big on talking about politics. So what I'm about to say has nothing to do other than what it was we were doing. We had an anti-inaugural ball for Reagan with Tom McGrath reading poetry and Lou Lupka leading a march.
Sounds about right.
That was our first gig.
Sounds about right, yep.
Oh my gosh, it was great. It was so much fun.
But there's an energy with that crowd, huh?
Oh yeah. It was quite something. But that was our first gig, and then we played a lot. And back in the day, we could easily play one spot. There's a place out over South Fargo. It's right off of 94. It's a hotel. I think it was called the Biltmore when I think that's what it was. It's something else now. We'd play there straight 3 weeks. Like, we'd play every night for 3 weeks. And that's the kind of gigs you were doing, or you'd play a week somewhere continually. And so we were played a lot, and we played a lot at Kirby's. And then we'd cross the street, and once in a while we'd play in the back end. It's of Ralph's, which would be like going to, what's that bar that closed in New York City that,
Studio 54?
No.
I'm pretty sure that it was Studio 54. A lot of people compare Ralph's to Studio 54.
Oh, no.
I'm just kidding.
No. What is the name of that? I just heard it on a song. It'll come to me, but it was down in the basement, which I actually went to. No doors on the bathroom, which now that's not a big deal because a lot of bathrooms don't have. But it's like it's just a dump. And it was the best bar ever. And I'm not saying that Ralph's was a dump, but it wasn't like going into some fancy, anybody and everybody. You just never knew who you're going to see there. And you never knew what band was going to be playing in the back room. And oh my gosh, the cigarette smoke. Holy smokes. It was like cutting a knife, but it was so much fun. Same with Kirby's. It was just fun,
I think, Fargo.
CBGB's.
Oh,
See, I'm old enough
sure.
that I get to shout out.
I think that there were a lot of music venues in Fargo Moorhead that were iconic music venues, and we got away from that, and they're fewer and far between now.
Yep.
Still great places to play in this town, absolutely, but all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe we should have a space that can host a wedding too.
Yeah.
And that becomes a way to monetize it.
I can't remember the name in Moorhead. There was a place right over by the freeway, not Kmart, what is Family Fair was something else before? Sunmart.
Sunmart?
Yeah, so in that little area, there used to be the coolest bar too, and a lot of Minneapolis bands played it.
Oh,
but
yeah?
I can't remember. It started with the B. Yeah, it was just like, wow, this is so cool, and to have all these great bands coming through. But so we started our band, and we played, I think, as Second Wind for over 20-some years, same people. And then a couple of people moved away, and then we didn't play for a while. And then my husband came up with the name of the Deb Jenkins Band. I did not name it the Deb Jenkins Band. But and we played more than we do now, and that's on me because my catering and my nursing, which I just literally retired this last year. I did that since 1973. I finally stopped in September of this year, of 2019. And it was just, I had to choose, I just couldn't do the bars. And I'm going to say the other thing is, because I'm no young chicken, the time change. When they changed the times how late the bars could be open, for some reason, that meant the band started later. I still don't understand that.
Yeah, when a band starts at 10 o'clock, I think, well, that's my bedtime.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that, but I mean, the bars just went with, if they're later open, then have the bands. Because, I don't know, I think people between midnight and 2 are feeling pretty good no matter what's playing.
Yeah, let the jukebox take over after that, right?
Yeah, so, but, so I'm not big on, the only place I'll go and play that late is Dempsey's. I love Dempsey's. I mean, it's sort of that Ralph's Kirby's kind of nuttiness of the people, and they just get into it. And I mean, I like everywhere. We play at the Hodo a lot. I like the Hodo too. I'm just thinking the if I'm going to go out and start late is how I'm trying to,
Sure.
We had Lisa from the Dempsey's on the show previously, and we talked to her too about how Dempsey's has become sort of the local iconic music bar. Like anytime I go see anything live downtown, it's at Dempsey's pretty much. It's where I go. It's like the place to be.
Yeah.
It's the vibe inside there is just awesome. It's just really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it helps when the people that work there enjoy, well, up here too anyway, every time I'm there, they enjoy the music or they enjoy what they're doing, or they're just beyond really nice. And it helps when the staff likes it too, being there.
Has the style of music changed in the 40 years that you've been doing this?
No.
Nope, no.
No.
Do you have a favorite tune that it's the one that always gets you going?
Well, actually, that's interesting how you put that. I have not really. I like to, if I'm playing, get to the energy of getting going. So what I mean by that is the last time we played at Dempsey's, I have my little stool with all my stuff on it, my shakers and whatever. And I think we were on maybe the second song. And this lady she was like pointing at me and pointing at the tambourine and then she goes, I want to play the tambourine. I said, not till I get my groove on. Do you touch any of my stuff? So it's just, I'll gladly let people take it, but not till I'm there, because I want to be I want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that.
But
right?
I think it's more like, for me, by the end of the last set that I'm doing, I'm hoping that I've got this energy because I get a little spastic on stage the best way. I can't stand still, and I just like that energy, So usually by the last couple of songs, we're playing stuff that I just don't. I'm just like gone in it, and I love that kind of thing. But I can't pick out one song. One of my favorite songs to sing that people like is "Out of the Rain," and so we always lead with that because it's depending on your interpretation of the song, it can be very depressing, and it's slow and but it builds up, but it's not one of those get up and dance kind of tunes. So, but it's requested a lot.
Do you have a song that people get up and dance to? This is the one that no one can stop from hiding out to the dance floor?
Actually, the one song I wrote way back in 1973, we still play, and it's transformed into, it's just amazing. What it started out sounding like in 4 has translated into something that's totally different, but it's so cool. And that is, people know the words and they'll sing the chorus, so that's sort of fun. Yeah, and it's catchy. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any albums?
We did we made 2 CDs, and that's it. And we were very fortunate. The first CD we made, I think we did like a campaign to raise money to get it made, and that worked just very well. And then we were asked to get on a label that wanted a blues CD, and so we were just put on the label. We were able to do a CD with that, so that was nice. So we just have the 2, and they're nowhere to be found unless someone's, I actually think somebody bought one on, what is that? You can go and buy secondhand stuff online,
like eBay or Craigslist or something.
eBay. It's like $1. That's all right. Or they found it in a secondhand store or something like that.
I'm gonna call up Dean Syme and be like, "Do you got some like Deb Jenkins like stashed away somewhere?"
Yeah.
I find it interesting that because it's so easy to put music online nowadays, I am seeing groups who pressed a CD in 1992, 1993, putting it online and then making it available to a new generation of people, and the ease of getting things put onto Spotify or Amazon Music, because they're just dying for content. They just want stuff that they can have. I have a good friend from Switzerland, and they've got a band, and they did a couple albums, and they said, it's tough because we sell them at gigs, and we had a website, and some people bought from the website, but we ended up getting stuck with 1,000 CDs, and you only give them as gifts so many times before people are like, hey, thank you so much.
Yeah.
But they said all of a sudden we put it online where it doesn't cost us anything. We don't have to carry around all of these CDs. And they said it just is amazing the number of people who will download this or find a particular song. And so maybe there's an online version for you guys.
Wow. I guess I don't know how you do any of that. And they must pay the site, and that's how they make the money. I don't even know how that works.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
So the last time I wanted to buy a CD was a gentleman coming through town playing at the Red Raven. This is like 4 years ago. He was really good. And I was just like, I'm going to go buy a CD. And I went up to ask him about a CD, and he gave me this little card, had his name on it and some password or code or something. He goes, okay, just go to my site, put this in, and I just said, thank you, stuck it in my pocket. I have no clue what I did with it. I mean, I'd rather just buy the CD, but that's because I'm not of this generation where you just go, okay, cool. And before you leave the building or in your car, you've already bought the CD because you just go, I don't get it.
Last time I had to purchase a CD, I had to go through a lot of hoops to buy it. And I think that's part of the problem with, there's maybe a span of like 7 or 8 years where people were transitioning from having physical CDs to being all online. And we forget that people still want to buy CDs. So I wanted to buy, the show Mad Men had a Christmas album that were all Christmas tunes from that era. I love it. And I was going to give it as a gift to someone who had just discovered the show. Well, I couldn't find it online anywhere. So I finally got it through eBay and spent way more than I ever would have if I just could have grabbed it off a shelf somewhere. I think discovering new music is more difficult today than it's ever been before, because all these sites and Spotify have algorithms that say, Deb listened to these 6 songs, so we're only going to suggest this music to her.
So what do you think of vinyl? That's coming back.
I think it's great because I am a big fan of cover art. I think like that is a whole other genre of art. And so being able to see some of those vinyls out there, and the fact that you can now send a website 10 songs that you love and they'll press a custom vinyl for you is amazing.
Wow.
So it's a mix record instead of a mixtape.
Wow.
Yeah. Who doesn't love stuff
How do you
like
know
that?
that?
Oh, because they're clearly marketing to me in a specific way online.
Oh, wow.
Okay, hard left. Let's talk about food, because
Sure.
I don't know if I've ever complimented you on this, but I tried it first at the street fair, and then you catered a wedding I was at where I chose the vegetarian option because your mock duck is one of the tastiest things I've ever tried in my entire life.
Thank you. But you're not vegetarian?
I'm not vegetarian.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I was like, nope, forget everything else. I want that mock duck.
Oh, okay.
It is awesome. How do you get into so you're already in a band and you're already doing your nursing, and now all of a sudden you decide you want to take on the world of chefery?
So, not to be depressing, but I got diagnosed with breast cancer, and it's not funny either, but I just decided, you know what? I need to do another avenue of what I've always wanted to do, because I don't know how long I'm going to be on the planet. So, I mean, we don't know that anyway, but when you get a diagnosis of any kind, it doesn't always have to be cancer. It's something that's not,
Makes you
Yeah.
appreciate the minutes.
Right. And so I decided that I would leave my double-digit paycheck hourly and go to a single-digit job and do what I really wanted to do. And I love my nursing. I do not talk about myself like bragging, but I was good. I did all straight ICU. Couldn't wait to get to work to have what we would call a 2-to-1, which means maybe there's 2 nurses to 1 patient because they have so much stuff going on, That became, the adrenaline, I love it. So it's not that I didn't love my job as nursing. I just wanted to do something else that I knew I loved to do too, and that's cooking. And I became someone that loved to cook, not only because I like to eat, but because I don't do sports. So my family, I'm the only one. I don't know what happened. I maybe got hit in the head, but my family would be in front of the TV watching the football and the basketball. I would be in the kitchen making up stuff. And needless to say, they never looked at what was in front of them other than the TV, and they would just put it in their mouth. So until someone said this isn't good, it was good. I just kept making stuff up. And that's how I started cooking at home. And then, I don't know what year it was, but a friend of mine who's also a nurse at the time, we just got together. She had some major surgery done, and she didn't know if she was going to go back to work. And we just decided, let's start a catering business. And we were sitting in our backyard, that's like gigging, like, we're going to go from making this much money to nothing, but we're going to, be happy and do it. So I had a partner for a while, and then she just chose to not do it anymore because she didn't enjoy, the uncertainty of what time am I going to get home. It just wasn't her thing to do it. But she helped me outside of that after she left the business. She said, I still want to help, but I just don't want the responsibility of having to be there if I can say no or whatever. And so I've been doing it for quite a while. And I decided all these different avenues of food, vegetarian, gluten-free, carnivorous, just because everybody... we all have somebody that we have a check by their name that of friendships that have one of those things or issues or health and although I will always be asked, like, do you do this if it's like a big party? Okay, I've got some friends that do this and that. Would you do that? Everything starts out, as far as I'm concerned, vegan. When you start adding the stuff, you get, it's vegetarian or now it's, carnivore. So to me, it's no big deal. It's like, it just doesn't, it's easy to do that. And I think it's a challenge to go outside of the box of books and what people have told you to figure out different things. I just made, and I use my family and friends and sometimes coworkers, like, okay, I just made this. Will you try it? Let me know what you think. No one else has ever had it before, but hopefully it'll be okay, especially more with my vegan stuff. And that's sort of fun, and I get honest responses, but I'll just make stuff up. My sister's family, all of them are vegan. And so whenever she comes up, I always have loads of food for her to take and email me, tell me what it's like. I don't always make everything the same. I just sort of remember what I put in. Like, I don't know how much this of that I put, but I know it had like eggplant in it or whatever. But I love to cook, and I love having dinner parties. And I don't want people bringing food to my dinner parties. my friends that have come a couple times, they now know they do not bring food.
They can
I'll
bring
give them
the
the evil
wine,
eye.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're coming up with a dish, let's say, is it based around, this is what I saw when I was at the grocery store, the farmer's market, and I thought it'd be fun to experiment with this? Or do you start with, okay, well, I know I'm going to make like a carnitas dish, and we'll just kind of say, I'm going to figure out that, and then what else is going to go on after?
I just decided I wanted to make some vegan enchiladas. So, I didn't want to do a typical vegan enchilada. So I decided, I want it to all be, no, I don't want any like corn tortillas or anything like that. Nothing. I want it to be, I'd use eggplant. So I just made the whole thing up. I made this, I figured out how I wanted to cut the eggplant, what I want to stuff it with, what kind of vegan cheese I want to make for it. And I make all my own sauces from scratch, and they're all vegan. And so I just visualized what I wanted to do with that dish. And it turned out really good. For me, it turned out really good. And I think that people that ate it liked it also. And then I'm not real, I'll go to the store and I'll see something, and if I don't know what it is, like I didn't know for a long time, kohlrabi?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, celery root. Have you ever had celery root?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, it's like, treat it like do it like mashed potatoes. I was like, it's so delicious. It's so, I love seeing the odd food. I don't know what it is. And then I find out what it is and what people use it for. I'm like, what?
Are you saying it's basically just like mashed celery? So basically just celery.
It's like it looks like it's brown. It's about like this. It looks like a football, but not quite.
Okay.
And it's the root of it, literally the big root, and my mouth is wet. It's delicious.
Yeah, it's not as stringy. It's not fibrous like celery
and it's
is.
white.
Got it. Okay.
Once you've peeled it and cooked it, it's white. And then
So
you
like a
smash
potato in a lot of ways. Got it.
Yeah.
I'm really into leeks right now.
I just bought some.
Yeah, like we're
Like
really
soup
lucky.
or-
Yeah, I love to put it into soup. I'm Scottish, and so kakaliki soup is a big thing from our heritage.
Oh,
And it's pretty much a chicken and leek soup.
okay.
But they use it like when you're sick in Scotland. That's what they're like, just dish you up some kakaliki soup and you'll feel better. But I'm so excited because I feel like another thing about Fargo is in the last like 5 or 6 years, we're getting great produce that previously never made it here. Even the amount of stuff like okra. I have a couple recipes that require okra, and you can get it easily now.
I know. I just did some gumbo for something, and I was like, I don't want frozen okra. And then I thought I saw it at the Asian market, but I'm not sure. Sure, there it is. And actually, it was at Horn. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's great.
I just had, and oh my gosh, and burn bombs. I'll just say burn bombs. It's just like the Wizard of Oz. Just tap yourself 3 times and say it 3 times. I think I've eaten there in the last week about 8 times. It's like people come to town that live around the area like out of Fargo. And I'll say, do you want to go out to lunch? I could suggest burn bombs like over and over again. And every time I have the same thing, but they're eating different things. It's gorgeous, beautiful. But yesterday I was there and I just wanted lettuce. Oh my gosh. I don't know where it was delicious. It was just lettuce, but it was I felt healthy eating it. And oh my gosh, I love burn bombs.
That's something that what you're kind of describing right now is a sensation I've been dealing with as one of my many New Year's resolutions is to stop eating so much junk food, just prepackaged stuff, fast food or whatever. And as I've been slowly getting better at doing that, one of the big takeaways I've been having is how flavorless a lot of the food that I've been eating has been. That it's been, it's been greasy or it might have some cheese on it, so it gives my brain a little dopamine hit when I eat it. But
probably a lot of salt.
Yeah, a ton of salt. It's just a mash of stuff that was frozen and thawed and frozen and thawed. And I just never really paid attention to how little flavor is in a lot of that food. And the food that I've cooked at home, which has mostly been like chicken dishes, it's packed with flavor because I guess it's hard for me to understand what that is, but that's been a weird discovery for me. It's almost like I'm learning how to taste again.
Yeah. And that's interesting too, because as you age, and of course, in general, your taste will change.
Right.
And I find like people that I cater for that are, and I'm not going to say older than me because I'm almost 70. So people in my age group from like 55 to whatever, they're liking more spice now. They wanted, more flavors and that. And in the younger group, like my daughter, she's like, "Oh my God, it's so hot! It's so hot!" I'm like, oh, "What are you?"
My mom
Not
is
that
definitely
hot.
in that camp because we go out to just get Mexican food, and she'll be like, "I need the hottest hot sauce you have. Give me the hottest thing you have."
Yeah.
I like hot stuff too. In fact, I was just telling people about
Not hot mustard though,
not hot mustard, not at all. Ugh, I'm not a mustard fan.
or
Oh,
you can't
I
eat
love mustard.
or mayo, which are my two favorite condiments.
Not
You
a
don't
fan.
like mayo either?
No.
What do you put on your? Do you eat sandwiches?
Yeah, I do. It's usually
Or like, okay, what do you put on a burger?
just like straight up. Like I'll put like ketchup on a burger.
Ketchup.
Yeah.
See, now I'm not a. I like ketchup with. Okay, I like ketchup with a steak and or
Really?
with what? Oh, French fries.
I'm guessing like a well done steak or something.
Oh no, I like my steak rare.
But with ketchup though is what I'm saying.
yes,
Really?
I love.
Interesting.
So like ketchup and fries. I think
Sure.
I grew up that way. When we'd have a red meat, it would be ketchup.
Yeah,
Right.
because I mean some sauce with it, and like
Yeah.
really, it's not surprising that Heinz got into the steak sauce game because they were already watching people put ketchup on steaks. And
Yeah.
so they're like, well, let's make a Heinz 57.
You're right.
Which, by the way, 57 has nothing to do with like the amount of products Heinz has. This is a little history lesson for you. When H.W. Heinz was coming up with the name of his company, he thought 57, that's a good number. People would trust that number.
Really?
And so that's why it's Heinz 57 varieties. But there aren't really 57
Oh
varieties.
wow.
Oftentimes you'd think that would mean, that's the 57th attempt was what this
Right.
recipe was. But that's not
Wow.
what
Like
you're saying.
WD-40. It
There you
was
go.
the 40th version of that.
Oh,
It wasn't
okay.
just a number people trusted.
Right.
Interesting.
Where's I going with
Well,
that one?
what do you put on a burger?
Oh yeah, so
WD-40.
I'll put WD-40 on the burger. It doesn't squeak at all. Yeah, I'll put a little bit of ketchup on there. Or barbecue sauce. I feel like is really hot on burgers right now these days.
I think what though is perfect is a burger that you don't have to put a condiment on. Where
right?
it's juicy enough and you've got the right amount of ingredients on top of it that you feel like, this, if I were to put a condiment on it, that would merely make this the flavor of that condiment instead of the flavor of the burger I'm eating.
Right. Well, and talk about taste changing. As a kid, I wanted just a plain cheeseburger, bun, meat, cheese. That's it. Now you put a big slice of tomato on there and some fresh lettuce and a red onion. Oh,
Yep, that's how I like mine.
How do you
I think they call that a California burger.
Yeah.
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 With all the
I
fixings.
I love it.
Do you prefer cooked onions or raw onions?
Depends. I like
on a burger. Let's say on a burger.
I like raw
Well,
I'm
I'm
with
gonna do my cooked onions.
cooked onions.
And I like them chopped up so that they're kind of like little taste explosions.
I need the crunch. I need the crunch
that's
of
what
the
I like.
onion.
The crunch. Yeah,
And the
I mean, I'll
acidic
do
flavor.
the fried, but I would prefer like a nice red onion. Yeah.
When someone hires you for catering, because I feel like when you're hiring Deb Jenkins, you can expect something different than the 20 other catering companies that are in town.
When people hire me, actually, depending on what it's for, my first question is, do you know what kind of food I cook? Because I'm not a trained chef. I like to cook. I'm grateful people will eat the food, but I'm not a fancy chef. I don't even have dishes. I mean, depends on how you want it. We can rent them, but I don't. I'm very laid back about it, and I'm totally okay if it's not what they want, because it's very disappointing to hire somebody and you don't, no matter what it is, and you don't get what you think it's going to be. So I want to be extremely transparent. It's like I say I don't bake, but I make 2 cakes and I make them well, and that's all I can do. I can direct you to somebody. But as far as my food goes, I want them to know that I'm not a fancy cook, but I can cook very well. And they'll go from there. So weddings, I'll only do, honestly, now I'm at the point where I will only do a wedding if I know the people, because they know me and they know what kind of food they're going to be getting. And generally, if people ask me to do weddings, generally, they're looking at either, because my husband does a lot of smoked meats for me, they're looking at, we want Mike's brisket. It's like, Mike's brisket. Okay, I'll tell Mike. And then I do sides. Or they have issues with, I need gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian, and they know I can do that, and so, yeah.
And you were really doing that before it became even a trendy
Actually,
thing to do.
Right. So 69 North 4th, which is right over somewhere, over there, right across from the library. That's where I started when I went into doing cooking again when I was sick. And it was a Full Circle Cafe. It was a transitional work site for people with mental illness and or homeless, SRO. First one in, the second one I think in the United States. First one for sure in North Dakota. Grant funded through Community Living Services, Fargo Housing, and 2 other businesses. And the goal was to hire that population of people to work with job coaches to transition back into the
very cool
city or wherever. And they wanted the restaurant housed in the building of the SRO. The goal was there too, is hopefully those people that live there would be the people that work there. They didn't have to live there to work there if they lived there, but it was just sort of the goal. And what happened was I thought, as far as I know, there's not a place that really has vegetarian when you say vegetarian. And I'm not sure if we were so much vegan as we were vegetarian and the gluten-free. But you could go to restaurants that said, no, this is a vegetarian soup, and it would come out, and there was not one piece of meat in it, but it was in chicken broth.
Right, yeah, beef stock.
Right, but there's no meat in it. I mean, it's like, so the thing for me was to make sure that everybody that worked there understood the difference between what a vegetarian fully is opposed to the chicken broth with the vegetables. And I think vegetarians eat more than just the vegetables. So we had literally like certain pots and dishes and, make sure if you're going to do that grilled veggie sandwich, that means this is allocated just for vegetable. I mean, that whole thing, that I truly believe we were the first that would really follow that through and do that. And I was pretty proud of that, that people could come in and I could say, yes, this is 100% veg. I did not stir your pot with the beef stew. A
good friend of this podcast, Natalie Deutsch, was a vegetarian for many, many, many years of her life. And she found it incredibly difficult to go out to a restaurant. And she goes, let alone going out to a wedding. She goes, so if you're a vegetarian, your choice is, well, we'll have the pasta. Yeah. You'll have the pasta. And then you find out like, well, gosh, it's just, noodles with a ton of cream sauce on there. And I don't necessarily want to be eating dairy either.
Right.
And so I think that the fact that you got that up and running is great because you're speaking and providing services for people who are not being taken seriously at the big chain restaurants. But nowadays it's so it's so popular. I mean, it's a way that you get people through the door by saying gluten free. But I noticed that like allergies are really not being taken seriously as much. And so there used to be where restaurants I think would ask that, like, any allergies that we need to know about beforehand, because you could order a salad and then find out it's got pine nuts all over it.
Yep.
My father-in-law was it when you only eat fish, that pescatarian?
Yeah, I think so.
So whatever it is.
I think you're right. I think that's what it is.
The fishitarian. So he only will eat fish, and really he only wants to eat salmon is his go-to. And I'm like, oh man, Pete, you have the same thing for dinner every night. How are you not going insane? But when we go out to eat, he has found that they are putting meat in everything. So he'll order a salad and it'll come out and it'll have a pound of bacon bits on it. And, or you'll order macaroni and cheese and find out that it's loaded, they put strips of steak in there. And think like, why are we adding all of this meat to dishes that traditionally have not been meat-based dishes?
Right. I don't know. I mean, that the mac and cheese is a good example because you can get it with shrimp, or sort of like the, Forrest Gump thing. You can add all these different things to it. I don't know why it's just not mac and cheese,
Can we talk about your chips for a little bit?
Sure.
In fact, just before we started, you said, I'm meeting a woman after this and she's buying some chips.
Yeah.
So I think those have become a real signature product.
Well, that is my signature product, actually. So that came about, oh boy. So when I had the partner and we had the catering together, we were trying to figure out, I said, we need to have something that is our signature for our catering. And I said, let's try chips. And trying to make them, I would get the corn, flat corn tortillas and chop them up, and they'd always be harder than a rock. I don't know how they do it. It must be so I couldn't figure it out. And then we were making wraps, like sandwich wraps. And I said, because of the color of all the different colors, I thought this would be so cool to have different colored chips. I'm going to try this. And the fact that they're flour, they just cooked up really nice, fluffy. So you could do the same with flour tortilla, just a plain one, the white ones, but the different color ones were great. And then I discovered jalapeno salt. My mouth is watering.
Ooh, jalapeno salt.
Yes, there was a company that made jalapeno salt, and it was very, very good. And then the company, I can't remember the name of it, but they have a picture of a guy who's like going, like this, like sort of with dreads that stick up. And they have product all over. They have all different things, but they stopped making the jalapeno salt. So my choice was make it myself, which I did try. And I'm like, I don't have time to make this stuff because you have to dehydrate. And I'm like, So I don't put that on anymore. I just use my kosher salt and a little bit of some other stuff. I'm not going to say what it is because that's part of
keep that on the down low.
But I have to give credit to Linda Boyd. Do you know Linda Boyd?
She's been on this podcast.
Oh, okay. So she used to help me like just with my labels and everything. And we were working on the chip labels. And when I first made the chips, I wasn't even thinking about what I was doing. I just cut them so each one chip is like about that big. And she said, well, instead of just Deb's chips, you should call them Deb's Texas chips. So I started calling that. And then people just love them. They're surprised because when they bite them, they expect them to be crunchy hard, and they're not crunchy hard. And they sell very well. I only sell them besides through myself or if I'm doing events. The only store that they're in place is Happy Harry's. And that's just because I've had the opportunity to sell them like in stores. But the problem is because I do it too, you'll pick something up and throw it back down if you don't want it. You don't take anything gently and put it back like bread or, if you want to get to a bag of something, you push everything over. And my chips crack on a heartbeat. And so they don't really like, there's no preservatives. There's so many this and that's about it. I don't have time to monitor all these stores for the chips. So Happy Harry's I can because that's, there's 3 of them. And right now we're just in 2, but it's easy to monitor and make sure they don't get all crushed or thrown back together. And
it is nice and convenient to be able to pick them up. That was my go-to.
Oh.
When I go to the Twin Cities and I'm going to like a cocktail party, I'll pick that up and bring it to the cities. And I'm like, this is a product from Fargo, North Dakota. I think you all are going to enjoy it.
Oh, thank you.
And you get rave reviews. So,
and I've shipped them everywhere. I mean,
Really?
They have even been literally at Madison Square Garden and eaten by Sweet Honey in the Rock.
Really?
Yep. And they liked them.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, they're pretty popular and they're pretty. They're fun to look at and yeah.
They're a little work of art
Yeah.
that you get to eat.
Yep.
You know?
Right.
Was there ever a time where they're like, well, listen, we need to really make a great guacamole or a great hot sauce that goes along with these? Or did you ever think about getting, making chip complementary dishes?
So what I make now that I've made since the chips is jalapeno pesto. And that's very popular too. Now my pesto is there's no pine nuts and there's, it's more of a Mexican. So the ingredients right on there. So it's like the cilantro and parsley and jalapeno is the first word. So, and it's not vegan. I could make it vegan if someone asked me to. I will do that for them. But otherwise, there's Parmesan cheese in it too. And that's really good. Again, another Forrest Gump. Mix it with anything from eggs to put it on pasta, put it on pizza, marinate with it, whatever. But people will mix it in with salsa, and have it for that. A lot of it's pretty tasty.
Are you replacing the pine nuts with something or just not using a base like that?
No nuts.
Okay.
None whatsoever.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But that would be something I would suggest if someone wanted to add. But there are a zillion hot sauces. I mean, we are a condiment queens and kings at our house. In fact, I just was looking in the refrigerator last night. I went, oh, for Pete's sakes. I don't have anywhere to put like what's supposed to be in the fridge because it's full of condiments. So my husband, like I was saying, he smokes a lot of meat, and he's gotten he has literally gotten popular like when I'm doing the farmer's market or different are you going to have the brisket? Yeah, I'm going to have the brisket. And so, and Mike gets sort of pumped up with that, but we have the brisket or the smoked pork, but he even smokes water. So we have in the fridge, like there's water smoked in there, and he makes jerk sauce. That's very popular too. He makes a really, really good jerk sauce. So that's all over. And then, there's the regular stuff. And so I just thought, I don't need to make condiments. There's so many people that do it already and do it well.
I think in this day and age, like we've got too many choices when it comes to condiments, in my personal opinion. I think if you really want horseradish in your ketchup, just get horseradish and ketchup and mix it and make it your own. That way, if you want a lot of horseradish, you can have a lot in there. The ketchup company will never know the exact amount that you want in there. And so you have some fun. I think that people are not taking risks in the kitchen enough, which is weird because we are so obsessed with recipes that we find online and cooking with this particular type of ingredient right now. But I don't hear as many people say, like, listen, I'm just going to open the cupboards and go for it.
Yeah.
Because that's a part of the fun, isn't it?
Right. In fact, a long time ago, do you know who Jill St. John?
Yeah.
That name?
Yeah.
So, do you know, I did not realize they moved to Arizona. She was sending messages about her daughter, Hannah, who's now in California, about music. And she said, oh, it's so great to be able to just drive to see her play. And I thought, well, from Fargo? That's not real close, California. And then I looked a little deeper. They don't even live here anymore. She lives in Arizona. Anyway, she helped me a lot also with media things for my business. And, okay, so now what was I going to on this?
Too many
Being
condiments.
adventurous in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Mixing your own stuff.
She thought I should have a cooking show.
Oh, yeah, you should.
Oh, no. But her idea, because I said, well, I don't have a clue what I would do. And I said, well, one of the things I would have fun doing is just knocking on somebody's door, don't want to know who they are, and asking if I could come in and just look through their cabinets and make food. So she ran with that. And at the time, I forgot where she was working, but she was able to connect and then connected me with this bigwig from the Food Channel, like Food Network on TV. And we pitched to him that whole idea. And after it was all done, and I'm not even making this up, he leaned back in his chair and he goes, well, who would open the door for you? Okay. I don't know what you mean by that, but who would open the door for me?
What?
I think it was just such a concept. He just people are just going to let you walk in. To their home and go in their kitchen, where I thought, well, sure. And I don't mean it as me. It could be you too. Like, who's just going to let you walk in?
But honestly, though, if someone knocked on my door and there's a television camera behind them and they said, listen, we want to make this, like this is the premise. I'm like,
okay,
sold.
so the premise, that's interesting. So that's sort of the bubble got busted and we didn't do any more with that. Jill was still sort of relentless about it. And I just went, well, yeah, I don't know. But there is a concept for that. And there is a show, I think it's still on TV. And that's where someone's standing outside of two actually, standing outside of a warehouse, like a Menards.
Yeah.
And waiting for people to come out and saying, can I come and redo your backyard? Really? I remodel, I do outside, work on yards. Can I come and do it? It's not going to cost you anything. Okay, sure. So it's sort of the same concept. And there's another show where people walk out with their grocery bags and there's contestants and they ask the people that walk out if they can buy their groceries because they have to take their groceries and make whatever's in that bag, something of it. So they're not knocking on doors, but
the thing is that in reality TV, anything that looks like it was on the spot and unplanned isn't. Like it's all planned in some way.
Yeah.
So even with a show with that concept, it would be theater to say they don't know we're coming and they're just going to let us come in, but that's fine. Like that's fine. The premise of the show is you're going to someone's home, going into their kitchen and seeing what you can do with what they have, and they're going to learn something from the experience, right? And there are so many shows with at least that basic premise for other things. Like I'm going
Right.
to come and look at your business or your home or
yeah.
other stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
So the notion that this exec
Yeah.
needed to figure out, how you're getting in the house is like,
Yeah.
the concept is there, dude. You could have figured that out, man. You could have
Yeah,
figured
I'll
that
never.
out.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I've always thought a great cooking show would be called the 50-50 experiment, where you get two chefs and they're in separate kitchens and they get to plan a meal based on the ingredients that are provided. And so it might be a piece of fish, but then there's peanut butter and it's just all these weird things. And so they get 30 minutes to start this meal and then they have to swap kitchens. And so you're walking into a meal that is already being made, but you don't get to talk to the other chef.
Oh.
And so part of it is you get judged on the concept of the initial meal and then what you were able to do with the other one. Because I love watching people panic. There's nothing more fun, and food shows do it so well.
Yeah.
Like your fondant's not working, and I got to turn this into a coffin for the Halloween challenge.
Right. So this is sounding a little bit like Guy, whatever his last name is.
Fieri?
Grocery
the
games?
Grocery Games.
It's very
Right?
much so. Like I
Yeah.
like what that dude's got going on in that show.
All of a sudden, he's like, "Oh, wait a minute," you know. Yeah.
Robert Irvine from
Yes.
Restaurant Impossible
Yep.
came to Fargo, and I
He
went.
did?
Yeah, I was at the Fargo Theater, and it was part cooking show, part motivational speech,
Oh.
and part of his cooking show that he did was he left the theater and let 6 people come up on stage and pick ingredients that would go into a blender, and he would have to make a sauce out of this thing. And so they chose like Lucky Charms and skirt steak and just weird stuff. And so it blends together and you watch him take that first bite and he's like, "Gwah!" And he said, okay, so here's a pro tip for you. He added peanut butter to it. He goes, peanut butter is a base agent and it will take the flavor. It'll overcome the flavor of anything you put it with. So if you end up making a sauce that's too spicy, add some peanut butter. It'll zero it out a little bit. If it's too salty, peanut butter, it'll zero it out. Too sweet, peanut butter, it'll zero it out. And he goes, you can save something that you've already been working on for a long time. It won't end up probably exactly as you want it, but you can still save it without having to get rid of it. So he put a big dollop into the blender and had some people come up and taste the before and the after. And they're like, yeah, it really doesn't taste, it doesn't taste like Lucky Charms and skirt steak. I can tell you that much.
Wow.
So yeah, he was great. And then at one point he had to cook while he was handcuffed to 2 different people. So, and then they took away all of his knives. And so he took apart the blender and used the mixer.
Yeah.
It was a fun show to watch.
When was that?
2 years ago,
Who
maybe.
brought him in? Do you know? I mean,
Jade Presents brought him in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a great show. It was a ton of fun. And he gave me his business card, and I said, I'm a big fan. I've seen every Restaurant Impossible. And he wrote on the business card that if I take this to his restaurant in Vegas, he goes, meals on me.
And you did?
And we did, yeah. And so we had like $100 meal, and that
You're
got comped
kidding.
because we had this little card.
Wow.
It was great. Also, we got his cookbook, which is a bunch of pictures of his abs. Like, it's just his abs nonstop in this cookbook.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I mean, he's a good-looking guy who obviously takes care of himself, but he also loves food.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
When you cook, do you dance at all? Like, do you...
I have to have my music on.
Yeah?
In fact, yesterday I did a catering job, and I was in a kitchen where there was 2 people working, and this one lady, she was like mopping the floor or whatever, just cleaning up. And I don't know what she was listening because I didn't know the genre of music, but it was good. She was singing to every song, and I don't know her, the whole time. And this is the bad part about my personality. I don't know not to talk to people I don't know. And I can be scary because it'll come out what I'm thinking. So, opposed to like starting with the whole hi. So she's singing away and I'm thinking she's really good. So do I ask her, how do I do this? Is she in a band or do I even talk to her? I mean, I've never seen her out here before and I don't want to scare her, Then I just thought, I'm just going to ask her. And I went up to her and said, hi, what's your name? She told me your name. And I said, so are you in a band? And then she said, no. And I said, well, you've got a great voice, And I real quickly pitched Celebration of Women. I went, if you're in a band and you say, you're really good, you don't have to be in a band. She was really good and I said, I love that you're working and singing and I love the music. It's just great. Got to have music. And I don't know, maybe some wine, but
Yeah.
music
for sure.
Music for sure, going on.
This is a great segue. So let's talk a little bit about celebration of women and their music.
Sure.
Because this has become a jewel
Oh,
in
thank
Fargo
you.
Moorhead's calendar every year.
Thank you.
I know people who grew up going to the show who were later invited to be in the
Yeah.
show, and it brings tears to their eyes
Oh.
because they get to be a part of this group of inspirational people who got them to pick up a guitar and to finally write that song that's been
Sure.
rattling around in their brain.
Sure. Mhm.
So, have you been there since the beginning?
I started it.
You started
I
it.
found the founder. Yeah.
And it's just grown and
Yep.
grown and grown. And so tell us a little bit about this. Obviously, the why seems pretty simple. Like,
So the why for me starting it was back to Full Circle Cafe. So one of the things is, like I said, it was a transitional work site for people with mental illness. So I was working. It wasn't my restaurant. Lucky. Oof. People that own restaurants, praise you, Lord, because it's a lot of work. And I didn't have to pay the bills. I mean, so I got paid to be there. So I asked my boss if I could bring in art for the walls and music for the ears to have for, at the time, it was more about young artists in town that had nowhere to put their art or play. And I have a son. It's not like I was going to say I had. My son at the time was in a band in Fargo too. And they could never find anywhere to play. Why? I don't know. Well, okay. So I said that wrong because they were a great band, but they were, what, grunge? Is that the right way
Yeah,
to say
sure.
it?
Yeah.
So it was loud. That's what
Right.
I'd say.
It's
Well,
hard to find places to practice too.
Oh, yeah, it
Not
was
just
our house.
play, but practice.
yeah. So anyway, I started asking him, and he said, once we've sort of formulated our mission of why we're here, which had to do with transitional worksite, sure. So it maybe was after the first year, but at that time, Lilith Fair.
mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
You guys know that?
I went to one in
I
the
have
cities.
to say, when I say Lilith Fair, I usually get a blank stare.
No.
Oh, good. You guys check. Okay. So Lilith Fair had been going on. I've never been able to go to a Lilith Fair, but I love the concept of what it was all about. And one of the things I thought would be great, because I was at this business because I was going through chemo and radiation, but I had support of the doctors and the nurses and my friends, and people that heard our music. I had the support of them. And I thought, I want to give back to the community somehow. I would love to do that. And I thought, I think I want to have like a Fargo Lilith Fair, but just like little tiny one, maybe at the cafe. And I started meeting, because we started having music. I met a woman at the time, I didn't know who she was, Nita Velo, and I started looking her up. I'm like, oh my gosh, singer-songwriter from, this area. She goes to Nashville. I'm like, this would be cool. And then I got to see her play, and Sarah Moreau had interviewed me when she was working over at India Shoe, and she sings, and she's awesome. And I met some lady, this is at the time, like I didn't know her either, named Connie Hill. And anyway, they was all singer-songwriter women. And I thought, this would be good, have our little affair here at the place. And then in my head, as I think of things, I can never keep them small. I just don't know how to do it. I mean, I can.
We don't know that's like at all, do we, JJ? We have no idea what that's like at all.
So I just thought, if I could find a larger place. So at the time, I thought, well, I'm going to call. I'm not going to say where I called. I called the place. And the response I got was, well, I'm going to have to take that back to the board, and we'll have to discuss it, and we'll let you know. And at the time, I've been playing on a weekly basis mahjong with a group of women. And so I brought this up that I wanted to do it. I brought this up who I had called, not so much about who it was or what the response was. And one of the ladies said that I shared this with my husband, your idea, and he said you should call Margie Bailey at the Fargo Theater. And at the time, I knew who she was just from the news. She was the executive director of the Fargo Theater, just a little spitfire, and I loved it, but I didn't know her. But I remember I was at work. I thought, okay, I'll call up Margie Bailey. And on the phone, she goes, that sounds great. When can you get over here? I'm like, oh my God. She said, when can you get over there? So the rest was history of that. I think we hit it off right away, and we sat and talked about all the things that, you could do from this, having a show like this. And by the time I got to her chair in her office, I thought, so my first initial idea was to give back with a concert. And now, if I want to give back to community other than a concert, how can you do that? So when we finally met, I said we need to do like an endowment fund, and then actually we need to give money to young women. And then my brain just wouldn't shut up. And so from that meeting, the show, as of this year, has been going on for 23 years.
Wow.
We have a core group of women, of which are still Nita Velo, Sarah Moreau, Connie Hill. The three of them hit it off, and they didn't know each other at all. They've made 3 albums together, and it's amazing. And there's just been a buildup. There's a list of women that have come in as far away as LA, the Reigning Jane. They've come, and Boston, Lindsay Mack. I mean, people that they hear what the mission is, and as close as here in town. The goal was to use regional artists around here, and it just sort of grew from there. And we're sort of bringing it back to that, where we're just using the regional artists, but we've had some amazing women come and mentor. They love the concept and want to be part of that mission where you're, encouraging young women and you're finding avenues for them to do other things and just mentoring with them. So yeah, and we give out at the show awards, which means we have people in the community and not even living here that give us money to give to young women, to give them that you're doing a great job. And the money, they can take it and buy pizza, throw it in there, and do whatever they want to. We have an endowment fund that has a scholarship, and those same women can apply, and by application for the awards also, but they apply for the scholarship through the foundation, Fargo-Moorhead Area Foundation, and it goes to their school in their name. So they don't get the money directly. But I wanted to have something where you get the money directly as an artist, for you to choose what to do with that money. Maybe you'd need to buy food instead of a pick or strings today, or vice versa, or you are going to use it for school, but that it's not contingent on you're going to use it for school. We don't do anything with that. And so when we first had our first private person in the community say, I want to be able to give a young woman an award, at the time through Celebration, we were giving out 1 award. And she said, can I give an award? And that it just snowballed. And so now it just depends. This year we had 10 recipients, and they were able to, there's an application committee of 3 people, which I am not on. I think I did it the first 3 years, and it was just like, I can't be on this because I would know, I know, okay, I'm not, I can't pick because there's just too many people that I might know, and I don't want them to think they did or didn't get it, whatever. So we have other people do that. But the committee decides how the money gets spent or divvied out. They could say, let's say 20 people apply, and they say we see 8 people or we see 20. So this year we gave out 10. I think we had 17 or 18 applications, and it was hard. It gets harder every year because these young women, they have to fill out an application form. They have to send in, their works of art, and, they have to have letters of recommendation before they even know if they're going to get so just that part, I think is really important. Like back when I said to my boss, I would like to bring in art for the walls and music for this community that we are working for, the homeless and transitional people. They are not going to go, one, can't afford to, a concert downtown, and they are not going to go to the art museums and walk around. Not really. So I want to bring that here for them to have in this space here. And so that was really important when these other artists started coming in. I said, even for that little bit we're doing here, that's a process too. The artist, I had a Wayne Goodmanson, do you know Wayne?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So his daughter was one of the artists that put art on the walls, and she was maybe 6 at the time. And I said, well, it's going to be more than just putting the art on the wall. I want them to do a opening. If they're going to put art on the wall, they have to put something in the paper, just like the big wigs. The whole process of it, And if they want to sell it, that's great. Not just to have art on the wall, do the whole process. And so that's the same thing with applying for the award. They have to go through the whole process of all of that. So, and it's been amazing because people, after 23 years, there's still people that have come that had never come. Now this year's different. First time ever, I had to cancel the main show because of the weather last weekend, ever. And it's been We had a Chastity Brown. She's played in it a few times. We have people that stay at different hotels downtown, and she was at the Radisson. She drove to the Fargo Theater.
Oh,
because it was too cold, she said. This is 1 year. So we've done the show when it's just crazy weather, but, not like last weekend. It was just really crazy. And let's just put on top of that, we were going to be at the Fargo Community Theater. Well, we had to find another spot. I mean, so a lot of domino effects on that. But the community, it's just, you said something early about this community. I mean, that's what the arts in this community, the people in this community, they still are very supportive. And they were just like, okay, the show's not going on, but we're cool. Make sure you keep doing it. People that bought tickets were like, we're cool. Donate it. It's just amazing. The saddest part was that I still haven't met. I've met one of the artists because we did an interview, the Bob Harris. But that's when I get to meet them and see them. And so we plan on doing things. We do house concerts in the summer, just bringing them in and whatever they want to do, if they want to do it, to get them involved in the show, because that's the whole goal. And that's every year we've done that with different artists. In fact, Janie, the same lady that was on Bob Harris, just got the opportunity. She's going to sing the national anthem next weekend for the truck thing at the Dome.
The monster trucks.
Yes.
Yeah. Janie Hudson.
Yes, she'll be doing that. So that's one of our missions, create opportunities. So, before the picks of this year, there's a lot of those women, I've never heard their name before, but I know like Janie, she plays out a lot, I guess. So people would know her too, that from before this show, but it's just amazing. I'm very happy that people have stayed on board to be part of the core group and keep it going. And the businesses that have come on board to say, yeah, you can have this venue for this night to do this, because it's a nonprofit event that has a very, I think, supportive message for the community. So
I think it's just amazing, and it's grown exponentially.
I know.
If you can only imagine what 23 years ago, like let's put on a show and less, I'm sure in your wildest dreams you didn't think 23 years from now.
Well, I was told after the third year not to be upset, because usually after 3 years this kind of thing just doesn't keep going. Someone told me that. And so I've still haven't said anything to them because it's pretty obvious it's gone on since.
Because you're being the better person.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that's clear about you, Deb, is that when you decide you're going to do something, you do it. And there's no half measures with you. I mean, you were nursing at the same time as, catering and doing your music. And then this phenomenal event that's been going on for, 20 plus years. I think maybe the most charitable interpretation of what that person would have been saying was that any giant event that's just not like a money-making venture for something oftentimes will fizzle after time, because it's hard to put the passion in it. But when someone like you is leading it, and then when the community embraces it the way that they have, it can perpetuate itself and continue to grow. I mean, I would assume that's one of those things that you want to see go way past you, right? Right,
absolutely. In fact, good segue. So one of the things I have tried to do in the last, for sure, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years, is get those core people that are more involved visually, verbally in the media. Because yes, I started it. It's my baby. We have a board. We have a, organization. And I think we should all be the face of that board. So I'm totally cool with whenever this show starts to come up or something's going on, when I get asked to do an interview, or I'll say, well, Sarah Moreau, who actually writes for different people in town sometimes and is very, able to do an interview, she could do it. Or even I've had people on the board go, that's not my thing. I don't want my, okay. But there are people that would, I don't have to be the voice all the time. I am the founder. Everybody knows the history that's they can let that know. But I think it's important too, because it could be someone that doesn't even know they're involved, because a lot of people don't even know what the show is till they come. But then they see, I'll just use Sarah again. Sarah but that's a bad one because she's really popular. But I mean, somebody, that like Tracy Welvaltney. Do you know Tracy?
Mm-mm.
So Tracy Welvaltney, she and her family used to own Josie's Corner.
Oh, okay.
Tracy's everywhere. Tracy is a mad woman. This girl, I mean, she's just like me, type A+. I mean, she's everywhere. But when she has her mindset, she does. But if I think I encourage Tracy to be the one she's the application chair, to do all the advertising for that, because people will see Tracy and go, oh, Josie's Corner, she's involved in that? Just different views and a different whole conversation about what they're thinking about the show. I know what I think about the show. And I know they're on board because of how I think, but they have their own opinion too.
But what you've done with that event, to me, that's like the phrase about planting trees under whose shade you will never rest. I mean, that's something that could last for years and years and years, and really set a legacy of helping women in art. And it's an event that both showcases and celebrates art, but actually helps create art at the same time. Yeah. Those are rare. Most times a musical event is merely a showcase. I'm going to watch it, I'm going to enjoy it. But it's not necessarily something that's also focused on making sure that art perpetuates and continues past that day.
I think it's really clear, Deb, that you've been ahead of the game on almost everything you've done in your entire life. So if you have any tips for what I should be looking at that's going to be popular in 2030, I really would appreciate
Embrace
that.
mustard, JJ. Embrace mustard.
Yeah.
Well, we kept you longer than we said we were going to. And so as we're wrapping this up, if people want to find out what you're doing, where the Deb Jenkins Band is going to play, more about celebration of women in their music, how are they going to find out?
So, okay, now you'll know how old I am. DebJenkins.com.
Oh, good for you to own that website.
Yeah. So
take that, other Deb Jenkins.
So Celebration of Women is on there, and we have on that site everything, like we'll have all of this year's stuff on there still for calendar, but eventually we will have, and it'll show where you can apply if you're a young woman in high school in the arts for our award, and that'll be on there. And just keep checking for what date it becomes alive to apply. And we also have, I also have on there the Deb Jenkins Band, and I try to post one. We don't play that much, but we are playing in Detroit Lakes as a quartet at the Lodge on February 16th to Sunday, and it's great hours. We start at 5.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice. I'll include links in the show description too, so anyone with the podcast can see them there.
Because of last weekend's weather, we did have to cancel the main show, first time ever in 23 years, but we kept all the auxiliary shows going because we were in Fargo and people that were playing were already here from wherever. Right. But we did reschedule Jessica because she was going to be at Side Street.
Yeah.
And they just didn't even know if they were going to stay open. So he was gracious enough, the owner, to say, but we'll reschedule her. So she is going to play this February 1st, which is next Saturday, as part of Celebration.
If you haven't heard Jessica Vines, she's been on the podcast twice. We've got some samples of her music.
I swear.
She's phenomenal.
She was in our show last year, and then the first time I ever heard her was at the farmer's market, and I couldn't see the stage. I thought I was going to break my body. I was by myself. I couldn't leave my booth, and I heard this voice. I was like, what? And then Mike finally showed up, and I was like, you should have heard. And she came back on or something, and Mike goes, oh, and he stopped what he was doing. I'm like, if he's doing that, I mean, I'm not wrong. This woman's really good. I think I was her stalker for a while. I don't know, not even lying. I had to message her and say, I'm so sorry, but where are you? I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't get enough of her.
We're inventing topics to get her back on the show again. Just being like, do you want to come talk about glue?
She's amazing.
Yeah, her and Connor Lee have been on twice, and both times they were very kind enough to play some music for us. And so
so support her. Celebration, Jessica, she's going to be at Side Street. And then she's actually done house concerts for us, and just very generous, I think, of her to do that.
Cool. Yeah. Deb Jenkins, this has been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it has been. Thank you. Very comfortable.
Oh, good. That's what we want to make it. We want to make it like super comfortable, even though like you're technically wearing the same color as the couch, so you're blending in.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, you just disappear. But thanks for having us on, and I can't wait to talk to you next year before Celebration and talk about how big it's gotten even in the year.
Yeah, that'll be great. And by the way, those young women that were in the show this year that were not able to do the performing. I've opened the invitation for them to whatever goes on between now and next year for them to come and be in if they want to be part of the show next year too. That would be awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
A huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring this podcast. Folks, if you're looking to buy or sell a home, contact Natalie Deutsch today, because Natalie Deutsch is not only a previous podcast guest, she's somebody who's going to care enough to sell your property for top dollar. She's also going to find you the best price possible if you're purchasing a new home. Last year on average, Natalie earned her clients $4,000 over list price on their homes and sold them faster than the market average. On average, Natalie's selling a home every 3.74 days. That's 2 homes a week. Those numbers don't lie. Find out why Natalie is one of the top agents in this entire market. Get a hold of her today, Natalie at hatchrealtyfm.com. You can also call 701-388-9338 or go on to livefargomoorhead.com. That's livefargomoorhead.com. Read all of her amazing reviews and then listen to her episode of JJ Meets World. Thanks again to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode of JJ Meets World and would like to help us continue to produce 2 new episodes every week, you can donate to our Patreon. Check out patreon.com/JJ Meets World and donate today. Even as little as $1 a month can go a long way. Visit our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com or hit up our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites the kids are using these days. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, go to linebenders.com, and you can find direct contact info for JJ. There's really super hot cocktail sauce you can get called St. Elmo's Fire, and it makes me cry and makes my nostrils hurt when I eat it, but then I just go right back and I have another shrimp with it, and then I go right back and I have another shrimp with it. And based on the conversation with Deb, I must be 60 years old.